I speak it though, what's on your mind, is deep though, we'll speak it though, we on the air, just take it there, I'ma take it there. Hold up, yeah, I talk about it, but I'm real about it, I speak on it, but don't catch films about it, we can chop it up, like it's nothing, baby.
What's going on, everyone? We are back here live here on OT Radio Show. And listen, man, we just had a little hiccup here and there, but hey, we are back here live here with your boy OT. And today we have a special guest today. Today we have best-selling author YBAngry, TEDx speaker, and couples coach, Mr. YBAngry is going to be joining us here on the show. And can't wait to have this conversation with him because he have no fuss, no drama. So we're going to talk about that game that he have to help out relationships and couples and stuff like that. So people, put your hands together for Mr. YBAngry joining us here on the show. How you feeling today, sir? How is everything with you today?
I'm good, OT. I'm good, man. Thank you for having me.
Listen, man, I definitely appreciate you joining us here on the show. Thank you for being patient, during the power outage that we did have. So I definitely appreciate that. And where should we get started? So let's start from the beginning. How did everything get started with you? Let's talk about it.
Listen, man. Let me say it. My wife's a very, very, very wonderful person. My whole family love her, including me. And but after being married for about 10 years, OT, I was ready to check out, man. And but the problem I had was one that she's such a nice person, and she hadn't given me any reason to really file for divorce. So I said, hey, why don't we try marriage counseling first? Being the person that she is, she said, okay. And so we went to marriage counseling, and I've got to look it up, but to this day, I don't remember if it was going to be a 12-week or a 16-week process. But what I can tell you is that the first 4 weeks, they were assessing us to see if we were just suitable for counseling. Because if she was beating on me, or if I was an alcoholic, then we would need our individual counseling. So on the 5th week, they told us we were suitable for counseling, but then on the 5th week, we got kicked out of counseling, and it was my fault. I was being stubborn, and I didn't want to do this exercise that the counselor wanted us to do. And so a couple of days later, I was saying to myself, it's a shame we didn't get another 8 to 12 weeks of counseling. I'm sure we could have gotten something out of that. So I was like, Lord, if I'm going to stay in this relationship, I need to see some progress right now. And so I just started working on something, and it ended up being this game. And I have to give God credit for it, OT, because it works every time. And I just don't believe I could have put something together that was so simple and just works every time like that. And so that's how it got started.
Wow. So let's talk about that game that you have. No fuss, no drama. Now, the concept behind that game, tell our listeners and people that's watching, people that's going to be watching the replay, what's the concept behind that game?
So when I first did this, I was trying to really help other couples avoid what I felt like me and my wife had gone through. Like I said, my wife hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't caught her cheating on me or lying to me, and she wasn't poisoning my food and stuff like that. I just realized, you know what? We just had some disagreements, and if I could have shown her that I was right about all of those, not really, but if I could have shown her that, if we could have resolved each disagreement as they had happened, then I don't think I would have had any issue with her at all. So I said, you know what? Let me figure out a way to help couples resolve their disagreements. So when I started working on this, I said, I just want to figure out a way to help couples resolve their disagreements one at a time, just one at a time. So the concept is the couple, they sit down and agree to settle one issue, just one. So
Okay.
he's not fussing at her about the food and if their roles are like this, while she's fussing at him about the condition of the yard. We're only going to talk about one issue because believe I believe that. So my wife's a really intelligent person, and I believe I consider myself smarter than the average bear too, a little bit. But um, I believe if two people have the same details in their head, they'll come up with the same conclusion if they're reasonably compatible. And so I said, let me figure out a way to help couples talk about their disagreements and resolve them just one at a time. And then every time they had a disagreement, they would just play this game. So what happens is the couple agrees to settle one issue. My most common one is, should she initiate sex more often? So it could be that. It could be, should we buy a new car? Do you talk to your baby's mamas too much? Uh, should he buy a Harley? Should he clean the bathroom? So, and we simplify this issue into a yes or no question. You notice all of my issues started with should, because that kind of gives us a yes or no question. So, and then, so once we've decided on the issue we're going to resolve, that issue is made up of several details. She has reasons why the answer is yes. He has reasons why the answer is no. They're going to write those down. And those are the details of the issue. But they're not going to throw these details at each other at one time. They're going to rank these details on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being most important, 10 being the most important. And then they will talk about the details one at a time. So they took this one issue and now they're focusing down into the details of the issue. And basically that's the concept of it, because if we can agree on the details, then they will probably agree on the issue. I find that a lot of times, like me and my wife, when I first did a test, when I was trying to put this game together, I sat down with her for a little test run. And right away, it was evident to me that she didn't have the same details that I had. Once she had the same details I had, she agreed with me and the issue was resolved.
Wow. Now, my question to you is that tell me what can help this out, because a lot of times we go through issues with our couples with egos.
So
Yeah.
So there's three. I might end up repeating this later to you. There's three main ground rules to this process. The first one is both parties have to be honest about the issue they're going to resolve. Obviously, if one of the people are going to be lying, then marriage counseling, nothing's going to work for them if they're not going to be honest, right? So the first thing is that they have to be honest. The second thing is both parties have to want to be in the relationship. They have to want the relationship to work. And that's because this is not the kind of game that you can win by yourself. The relationship has to win or you both lose. And the third thing is that they need to be able to count to 14, because they're really just 14 simple steps in the process. And just go 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 14. And if you do that and you do it right, it will work. It has worked every time. So I don't know if I answered your question. Let me ask you again. What was that question?
So
I'm sorry, man.
Now, actually, tell you the truth, yes, you did answer the question, right?
Okay.
So so you said count to 14. Give us 1 through 5. because you said you got to count to 14. So give us the 1 through 5 one.
Okay. So we begin. This isn't really one of the 14 steps, but we begin by the couple begins by agreeing on one issue to settle.
Mm-hmm.
Should she initiate sex more often? Okay.
Okay.
That's the one issue they're going to settle. That's the yes or no question that has to be answered. Now, she is going to, in step 1, hold on. This is what the game looks like. It's I don't know if you can see that. Hold on.
Yeah.
It's a
okay.
It's a pamphlet,
Mm-hmm.
and it has. Does that show up? I'm sorry.
Nah. Okay.
It-
Okay.
okay.
I got it. Yep. I
Okay.
see it.
It
It
has
looks like a
cards
checkbook.
in.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it has cards in it. So
Mhm.
they take these cards out, and he might take 4 or 5 cards out of it, and she'll take 4 or 5 cards out of it. On
Mhm.
each card, they'll write down one detail to support their yes or no position on the issue. So let me change the issue to should we buy a car? So she wants to buy a car. He doesn't want to buy a new car. So in step 1, she's going to write one detail to support her issue. One of the details might be this car has broken down 3 times in the last 2 months. And then she'll take another card, and that detail might be this car is raggedy.
Mhm.
And then she'll take another card, and in step 1 she'll write this card is 40 years old. Okay, so now she has done step 1 on 3 cards. Step 2, they both have to agree on who's going to be player A and who's going to be player B for the entire game.
Mhm.
Let's say the guy's going to be A and she's going to be B. So on his cards, he's going to circle A in step 2. The lady's going to circle B in step 2. Step 3, they both have to rate how relevant this detail is to the issue we're going to settle. So for example, she said this car is broken down 3 times in the last 2 months. She's going to circle B because she's player B, and she might make this a relevance of 10 because her safety is important to her, and she doesn't want to be sitting on the side of the road 2 times a month.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's steps 1 through 3. And now for his step 1, he's going to write down, hey, my grandfather gave me this car on one card. He's going to say it still works in step 1 on another card. And he's going to say it's a classic. Oh, no, we can't afford another car in step 1 on a card.
Mhm.
And he's going to rank those from 1 to 10, okay, with 10 being the highest. His 10 might be we can't afford a new car. Her 10 might be it's broken down 3 times in the last 2 months.
Mhm.
So we're going through steps 1 and 3. Steps 4 and 5 OT are the most important steps in the game to me. These steps are where if she's going first and she says, hey, this car's broken down 3 times in the last 2 months, and that's a 10 to me. That's really important to me. Now, steps 4 and 5 are for him to do. They're on his side of the card. He has to repeat back to her what he believes she means in his own words, and then follow that step 5 with, is that right? So if she says, hey, this car's broken down 3 times in the last 2 months, and that's a 10 to me, he's going to say, so what you're saying to me is this car keeps breaking down on you and you don't feel safe in it and you want to get a new car. Is that right? And then she will say yes or no.
Mhm.
That takes you through steps 4 and 5. What we've done so far is, 1, we've written down all the details of the issue. Sometimes when couples are having a debate or an argument, they don't have the same data in their head, so they
Mhm.
can't come to an agreement. So by
Mhm.
writing down all the details, we'll be able to get all of that out. The other thing that it does is, maybe this has been pinned up in me in a little while, and writing down all the reasons why it bothers me actually allows me to get it out now. Whereas
Mm.
if we were just having an argument, I might only get one or two of my points out.
Uh-huh.
But this way I get to get it all out. And once I get it all out, it does make me feel better at the end of the game, especially when we've come to an agreement. We've come to an agreement. That's what we really want. And I was able to express to you everything that I needed, to say, which doesn't happen. That doesn't happen when you're having a heated debate.
Right. So that goes right there to what basically the next question is, because you're talking about, communication. So what role does effective communication play in your coaching methods, and how do you help couples enhance, their communication skills?
That does go right with that. That's pretty good. So steps 4 and 5, when one player has to say to the other player, so what you're saying to me is, one of the biggest parts of communication is making sure you understand what the other person is saying. Sometimes people, especially when they're having a heated debate, they just want to be heard. They're not focused on hearing what the other person has to say. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be right. I want you to understand my point of view. But with steps 4 and 5, so what you're saying to me is, this card's broken down 3 times in the last 2 months, and you don't feel safe. Is that right? When she says yes, now she feels heard, right? And now when I respond to her, I can respond to what she actually means, not something I thought she meant based on what my life and my experience has shown me. So I don't know if you've experienced it before, but a lot of times when couples are arguing, sometimes they're not even arguing about the same thing.
Facts.
Maybe it's because I'm a man and she's a woman, but sometimes I can tell me and my wife, we aren't really talking about the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have the game like this, you can make sure you stay on the same page and you're talking about the same thing. And as you can imagine, it's hard to resolve an issue if we aren't talking about the same thing. Now, I've had multiple couples say, well, me and my husband are good communicators, or me and my wife, we're good communicators. But when they come to this step and they say, so what you're saying to me is blah, 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 is that right? The wife will say, no, that's not what I'm saying. And then he'll say something else again, and the wife will say, no, that's not what I'm saying. 4 and 5 times sometimes. They will have to rephrase what they're saying to understand what their wife of 20 or 30 years really means. So it helps the communication. It helps him understand, or helps her understand, what the other person is actually trying to say. So
that goes right into the next question, right? The misconception about relationships, right? So in your experience, what are some of the common misconceptions about relationships, and how do you address them in your coaching?
OT, just like I just said, a lot of times people feel like they're good communicators.
Yeah.
But they're really not. They really are not. They might have a good control of the English language, and they might be good at expressing how they feel, but they're not good at understanding what the other person is saying, or they're not good at listening. This process forces you to listen and understand. Like a few people have said that this game levels the playing field. Like a lot of times, well, almost all the time, there's going to be a person in the relationship that's more dominant than the other, or more articulate than the other person. And they have it's easier for them to get their points across. And that leaves the other person losing all the time. So even though they think they communicate well, the one person that's losing all the time, this is just built up tension, and after a while they're going to get tired of losing, and they just want to check out.
Right. Wow.
Okay, so the real misconception is that people don't communicate as much as as well as they think they do. And the actually, let me back up. If I had to say one big misconception, is that people don't believe they can resolve their disagreements in just minutes, no fuss, no drama. I used to have such a hard time getting people to play this game when I first started. And people are they're still very skeptical of it, because if that was possible, why didn't somebody come up with this 100 years ago?
Yeah.
Why are there so many divorces? Why is, but again, I think that's why God blessed me with it. But it's so simple, and it just works every time. Having this game just changes the environment and makes people comfortable to talk. And when they sit down to play the game, they're supposed to be having some fun. They're not supposed to be yak going at each other. And I think it just puts them in that mood. Plus, it gives them a structure. It gives like a structured argument, because you can't talk right now because we're just on step number 4, and that's my step. Your step won't come again until step 9. So it keeps control of the conversation.
So basically, everybody is being heard.
Everybody's being heard. Women, more than anything, have said, because I always ask at the end of every game, why do you feel like, why were you able to resolve this after 15 or 20 years? And the lady will say something like, well, I feel heard. I feel like he heard me. And the guy will say, well, I didn't know. And she'll say, I told you 100 times. But he wasn't either he wasn't listening, or she was delivering it wrong, yapping at him or something. But when they sit down to play, they actually listen to each other. They actually hear each other. And they both feel free to slow down and express what they really mean. Because sometimes we say something to our partner, and when our partner says something back to us, it's not really what we meant. So I might need to change what I said. So it keeps the communication, it keeps them on the same page, because it helps me to say what I mean, and it helps that person hear what I meant.
That's interesting. That's interesting, because I know a lot of times when you do be in a relationship, and couples tend to, no one wants to be heard, right? So when an argument comes, it's my way or the highway. A lot of egos get involved in it, right?
Yeah.
So, and that was one of the questions, like, how can we resolve those egos issues when, even though you might have the game and the game is being played, egos is still involved in it too, right? So how can we transform that ego into us just actually listen? Because I know, as a man, right? As a man, I know we tend to, turn the other cheek when conversations don't go our way, right? So how can us men in our egos transform that to actually listen to our spouse?
So the players have told me that they feel like this game removes emotions from the argument, from the discussion. So if the emotions are down, and you're a little happier, you're more resourceful, then your ego is probably not going to get hurt so much. And since no one's throwing hand grenades at you or attacking you, there's no reason for your ego to be heard. It
Mm-hmm.
it really calms the situation down. When I say no fuss, no drama, I mean no fuss, no drama. There's nothing on these cards. There are no jokes on these cards. There's nothing funny in this game.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to YBAngry.com, now that's the letter Y, the letter B, and the word angry, all one word.
Mm-hmm.
When you go there and you watch the videos of couples playing, or if you check out the YBAngry YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
you can see couples actually playing the game. When you see them laughing, they aren't laughing because of anything in the game. They're laughing because what the other person said or how they feel. That's something that does not happen when you're having an argument or
True.
very serious debate.
True.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you're laughing, your ego is probably not gonna be hurt. It just changes the whole environment, I believe.
Man, you coming up with this concept right here and put it into play, and actually, like you said, I mean, just like a game, right? So you
Mhm.
write down the issues that you are having, but you're addressing
Just one,
one at a time.
just one
Just one
issue.
issue. Just,
But we're only going to talk about one issue today. That issue is made up of several details.
okay.
We're going
Okay.
to talk about, and then we're going to talk about one detail at a time. That's
Mm.
it.
I like that right there because when you tend to have conversations with spouses and partners, um, it tend to be more than one issue
Right,
all the time. And for
right,
you just to address that one issue, I like that part. And then we can go to the next one the next day and and,
right.
and definitely have that conversation. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, my wife said a long time ago. She said, couples can play this. That could be their Sunday after dinner thing. They could play it once a week to talk
Hmm.
about and an issue that they had this week or something they want to talk about. So I
Hmm.
mean, so ideally, what's going to happen is when your partner or spouse has a problem or something happens they don't like, instead of coming at you, we need to talk. They're going to
Hmm.
say, "Hey, honey, let's play YBAngry," right? And that's a totally that changes the mood, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, it does.
when your girl says we need to talk, then the wall goes up, and you already
Yeah.
know you're in trouble. You're gonna have a fight on your hands. You know,
So you coming up with this concept, and I definitely like the concept because it goes to one detail, one issue, and we have conversation about that and how you put it into play with 14 steps. That goes a long way because once again, the communication, effective communication is the key. And
Mhm.
one partner might think that you're saying something in another way, and another partner might take it in another way. So that bridge the gap into, okay, well, listen here, this is what I'm talking about right here.
Right.
How do you feel
So
about this right here?
right. So now we went through steps 1 through 5. The next step was step 6. When that guy said, "So what you're saying to me is, uh, the car is broken down 3 times in the last 2 months, and you don't feel safe. Is that right?" And she says, "Yes." The next step, step 6, he has to say whether this detail is true or not, because you'll be surprised how many times I'm helping a couple play the game, and the detail that's a 10 to one player isn't even true, or the other person don't believe it's true. So as you can imagine, it's hard for a couple to resolve an issue when they don't agree on the details.
Mm-hmm.
So this allows us to talk about this detail and allow one person to say, "Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that the car had broken down 3 times." I mean, that's a crazy one. But
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes, and that wasn't that issue, but uh, several times I've had a person say, "Oh, I didn't know that was," or they said, "No, that's not true." I remember one time the lady said that their issue was, should we hire a lawn service? Because the husband, very smart guy, and they were both smart, but he was a do it yourself kind of guy, and
Mm-hmm.
he had plenty of money, but he was a do it kind of self. He didn't want to pay somebody to do the yard, but he was never really getting around to it. And the lady, one of her details was that the neighbors are starting to complain. he said that's not true. And so then she had to talk about that. And then she had to say, because so in the conversation, he says, well, who's saying it? She said, well, just one guy, I guess. So that had to make her realize, okay, all the neighbors aren't talking about it, just one guy. And maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was, which it helps them come together a little bit more and a little bit more. And before you know it, they've come to an agreement. You know, they see eye to eye and they come to an agreement.
Nice. So with the no fuss, no drama, right? You know, I mean, you have pages and pages of it, right? Saying, and I'm just gonna throw something out there, saying a guy play video games, and you had that on there. Say a guy play video games a lot, right? And the partner feels some kind of way because he plays video games instead of having, being around with him all the time, right? Because I know that goes on a lot today, because there are a lot of people who play video games, right? A lot of males who play video games, 2Ks and Maddens and Call of Duty and Fortnite, all that good stuff. And ladies do tend to catch an attitude because they men are spending more time with that. With this game, how can this help both of them understand each other? Because I know you got on your YouTube, and I know that's like one of the biggest things.
So this, I actually did that one, and it was, I think it's, does he play video games too much? So he is 60 years old, and she is something like that too. And she's pissed off and feeling like he plays video games too much. So that's their issue. Does he? He doesn't think he does. Their issue was that they're going to settle, does he play video games too much? So to make a long story short, he's in there playing video games. She's looking at the yard, and she says something to him, and I guess he's like, okay, I'll get it. And so she storms out the door, slams the door, and goes out there and rakes the yard herself. No, she just mad. Now, but when they sit down to play the game, he said, I didn't know it was urgent. If you have something you want done now, if you tell me now, I would shut it off and go do that now. But when you just ask me to do something, that doesn't mean now if you don't create that sense of urgency. So with her knowing that he would stop, and with them talking about it and her understanding that he would stop if she needed him to right now and go play, it made her feel better. And now if she sees a bag that's blown into the yard and says, honey, there's a bag in the yard, can you go get it? She'll know, she knows she needs to say, can you go get it now? If she wants him to go get it now. That keeps her from going out, slamming the door and getting it herself, and then being mad all night because she had to go do something in the yard while her grown husband was playing the game. Really, it just made them talk. And once again, he didn't know it was a big deal to her. He didn't even know it was a big deal to her that he was on his game all the time. So another benefit of having this game is it makes it easier for couples to bring forth issues and talk about them so that they can, stay peaceful around the house. I believe little issues permeate into bigger issues in life. In the house, I went to record a couple one day, and the first step is they have to agree on the issue, and I was explaining that to them, and they were him-humming a little bit, trying to figure out something to, or agree on something to talk about. And I said, well, the last couple did it on should we buy a dryer, and one of this party said, oh, that's not a big deal. I said, well, it is a big deal if you're the one that have to kick this dryer every week. Well, if you're the same one that cooks, you might not feel like putting as much love in the food that day, or you might not feel like having sex that night. So I think I just say that to say that I believe little issues, permeate into big issues in our life. And we just take care of the little things or take care of the issues as they come up, life will be happier and easier for all of us.
I agree. I definitely agree, and that goes to communication. And I think your game will help that out 100%. You know, with communication, because I mean seriously, because
Hmm.
a lot of times when you have partners and everybody is agreeing to disagree, or someone want to make someone happy, or situations like that, um, that right there will stop all that. It was like, listen to this issue, this one detail for the second.
Right. Agreeing to disagree is just sweeping it under the rug. And
Mm-hmm.
once you do that a lot, then you know you have a bunch of pent up stuff over the years. And another thing, I don't like it when you do this. And you know, so hold on. So so it's definitely much better when the couple is able to actually resolve the issue instead of agreeing to disagree or sweeping it under the rug. I just did one the other day. You mentioned communication. I just did one last week. Should we communicate more?
Mm-hmm.
And they've been together since 1979. The guy said
Wow.
that like 8 times during the recording. And but at the end, she said this is the first time he has apologized for cutting her off and admitted to cutting her off. It just works, man. I had one of the first ones I did. This lady, I mean, for 20 years, this guy refused to clean the bathroom. Excuse me. Well, his story was he grew up with 5 girls in the house or something like that, and they did everything inside, and he did the yard and took out the trash or something like that. So he just was not gonna clean the bathroom. That was ladies' work.
Mm-hmm.
But for 20 years, he refused to do it. They played the game, and he agreed to do it. On average, these issues are resolved in less than 26 minutes. OT 26 minutes.
Wow.
The game it just works.
Wow.
She didn't believe it, and I called to
Uh-huh.
check to
Uh-huh.
see how, because when I first started recording, I didn't know anything about YouTube, so I had all these recordings built up, and I didn't start putting them up online for like 6 months later. So
Mm-hmm.
I would call the couples like 6 months later to say, "Hey, how's it going? Is he still cleaning the bathroom? Yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
have no problem." So it works, and it seems to people, not that it's gonna work forever because people always backslide, but at
Yeah.
least, hey, honey, do we need to play YBAngry again? And that's not a fight. You just sit down and play the game again, or remind them of what we talked about before. But people are hanging in there and sticking to what they agreed to, and I think that's mainly because they got all the details out. They
Yeah.
didn't just get to say one thing and swept the rest under the rug. They both parties get it all out, and they come to an agreement, and they understand each other. They see eye to eye. So
I like that. I definitely like that. All right. Well, listen. You got to tell everybody where they can find the book at and where they can follow you at on all social media platforms.
so this is the game, and this is the book. But you can get both of them on at YBAngry.com. That's the letter Y, the letter B, no spaces, and the word angry all together.com. If you go there, if they go there, they can click, and they click on 3 free tips. It'll ask them for their email address and their name, and I will email them a video for free of how to cut back on some of your arguments,
Mm-hmm.
and how to resolve some of this stuff. It's just it's a short video. It might be uh 5 or 6 minutes or 8 minutes or something like that. I don't know. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I will email them that video. But they can
Mm-hmm.
order the game. They can order the book. They can, at the near the bottom of the page, I put probably 50 links to 50 videos, and you click on the title, should he buy an expensive car, or should she clean the bathroom? Whichever one that that applies to your issue right now, you might want to click on that one and let that couple tell your spouse or your partner how you feel. But on the other side of the coin, you'll get to hear how the other person feels too.
Mm-hmm.
So you can learn from other couples. This should she initiate sex more often? If you watch all of those videos, you'll see the girls saying almost the same thing, and you'll see the guys saying almost the same thing. So we aren't that different. We just don't understand each other. So if you have an issue, if it's one that's on my website, or all the ones on my YouTube channel aren't on the website, but if you go to the YouTube channel and find that video, you'll you can learn. You might learn what your spouse or partner feels without even talking to them.
Okay. Well, listen, I definitely appreciate you joining us here on the show to talk to us a little bit about, no fuss, no drama, and how to resolve issues less than 26 minutes. Like you said,
on average,
on the average 26 minutes. But I like the fact that we get down to details, right?
Yeah.
And it's one detail at a time, right? So whatever whatever the issue is, we're just going to talk about that in one detail at a time, and everybody can be heard. So I need a copy of that book. I need a copy of the book and the game, because I can play it too. I might play it with amongst a lot of us, a lot of couples. Let's have this conversation.
Okay.
My video and send it to you.
All right.
We can see how it is.
Hey, you said you were in Philly, and I was in Philly for Thanksgiving, and I did a podcast up there, and the guy was kind of skeptical. I said, "Hey, man, invite somebody on the show. I'll be glad to." And dude, that one was, should your mother live with us?
Wow.
The wife didn't want. Well, I won't tell the whole story, but she had an issue with the mom staying with them. And I was like, so every now and then I run across one where I'm like, oh man, I don't know if we're gonna be able to resolve that one. But it happens, man. It works every time. It works every time. They resolved it, and they're good.
And
so I'll be glad to help you too.
Okay. And something that you said in there a while ago, when you said, one detail at a time. However, you said, effective communication, right? And that's one of the keys to it, and sometimes we communicate and our partner not probably understanding our communication because they're hearing something different, and vice versa.
And we're transmitting something different.
Yeah.
Hey, OT, I want your audience to know that my master's degree is in software engineering. So I don't have an education in therapy or any mental anything. So, and I say that to say, when it comes to relationships, I'm just a regular guy. So if a regular guy can come up with a simple game, then it should be easier enough for regular couples to play it.
Yeah.
It's not complicated, is all I'm really trying to say. It's not complicated. Now, it is different than how they have been used to resolving their disagreements all their lives. So when I go coach couples, my job is to make sure when they're on step 4, they're doing step 4, not trying to jump to step 8, because they're used to coming back real quick and arguing and stuff like that. Wait a minute. Sometimes I have to say, hey, wait a minute. We're just on step 4 right now. And and they get it. Sometimes the other partner will say, no, honey, you're out of line. We're just on step 4 now. That's why you have to be able to count to 14.
Yeah.
And they'll be good.
I love it. So go ahead and tell everybody where to find it at once again, and tell everybody your IG so they can follow you.
Instagram is Mr. Rod Jeter. My Facebook is Mr. Rod Jeter. I believe my LinkedIn is Mr. Rod Jeter. And the website is YBAngry.com. No spaces, the letter Y, the letter B, the word angry.com. And there you can get the game, you can get the book. And I did a TED Talk. You can click that video and watch that video. And I really enjoyed that. And again, you can watch a bunch of other videos too.
I like it. I like it. Well, listen, y'all. Y'all heard it here first here on the OT Radio Show. Hey, thank you, Mr. Jeter, for joining us here on the show to talk about No Fuss, No Drama. Couples coach, best-selling author, TEDx speaker was here today having a conversation with us, talking about it. Make sure y'all go out there and get the book, get the game, and like you said, one detail at a time.
Right.
It's the key. One detail at a time. I like that. I like that.
It's couples coaching with instant results. You don't need to go to 16 or 12 weeks. You can get some immediate results right now if you sit down and just play the game.
I know that's right. Well, listen, once again, I appreciate you for joining us here in the show. And you got to come back and, try to, think about doing a couple of things in 2024. So I might be inviting you to Philly to do maybe a couples thing.
We can do it.
Try to build up, try to get a conference and have a good convention where people could go to different things and, we can have conversations too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, listen, man, I definitely appreciate you joining us here in the show. Appreciate you again for being patient during this power outage that we had. So, hey, God knows best.
Hey, man, I'm looking forward to seeing you. We can have a YBAngry party where 10 or 20 couples playing at the same time,
Hey, listen, I like that. Why not? Why not? I like that.
I'm working on a talk show, man. I'm trying to get together a talk show where the audience has a bunch of couples in it, and the couples they type the issue in, and all the couples in the audience and the TV audience get to vote on which issue to settle. It's going to be kind of like Jerry Springer, but none of he's slept with my sister kind of stuff.
Right.
And then that couple gets to come on stage, and everybody gets to watch them resolve their issue, and they all learn at the same time.
I like that. I like that. Well, listen, let me know anything that we can do on our side to help out with that.
Hey, I need help. So if you know anybody that can help me put that together, and
okay,
because I don't know anything about that except for what I'm learning, I'm open to it, man.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. So let's keep in touch. Don't go nowhere after the show. Before we can talk offline.
Okay.
So just stay on for a second. All right, y'all. Listen, man, I definitely appreciate y'all for joining us here on the show. Appreciate best-selling authors, couples coach, Mr. TEDx speaker, and the author of No Fuss, No Drama. Y'all can get it on Amazon. It is best-selling right there on Amazon. So y'all make sure y'all go ahead and pick it up. Mr. Rod Jickers joining us here in the show. So, man, listen, man, I definitely appreciate you, Mr. Jeter, for joining us. Appreciate it. And like I always say, if someone asks you how you doing, you always tell them you're doing better than yesterday. And once again, this year, 2024, we used to have one scholarship. Now we have two for any aspiring high school student with a 2.5 grade point average that is planning on going into the medical field, college, community college, or technical school. We got a scholarship for you. So you make sure y'all go ahead and register for that scholarship on boyd.org at the Retains-Warren. Yes, we have it. Yes, we gave out one last year, and we was blessed enough to start out with two. So y'all see it right there at the bottom. We definitely appreciate y'all all the time for joining us here on the show. And join us next week because we got a good show for y'all today. You know what I mean? Next week, I'm bringing on 3 people, 2 males, 1 female, talk about their podcast. And, they're going to talk about a little bit of R&B. That's what they're going to talk about. So I'm glad to have them on next week. So we're going to have them on next week, Wednesday at 7:15. We're going to talk about the upcoming podcast and what they got going on. And, hey, R&B. I love it. Well, listen, y'all, I appreciate y'all again for joining us here on the show. Make sure y'all go follow, share, like, subscribe here on the OT Show. Thank you for watching. Peace.